What you're seeing here is the inside of one of the thousands of Semios camera traps in our California-wide Navel Orangeworm monitoring network. This year, we have caught over 37,000 Navel Orangeworm across the Central Valley. Keep watching to find out what this means for Navel Orangeworm management this season. Hi, I'm Andrew, and welcome back to the second video in our Managing Navel Orangeworm series. I'm very excited to give you the first look at some novel Navel Orangeworm monitoring insights. But first, I'd like to introduce you to the Semios Navel Orangeworm monitoring network. This monitoring network consists of thousands of wirelessly networked camera traps distributed throughout California's Central Valley. Traps in the network are baited with female attractive lures and are annotated daily. This monitoring network can provide Semios customers regional insights to support their on-farm pest management decisions. One such decision this monitoring network can help support is setting Biofix. So first, I'll quickly review what Biofix is and why it's important, then I'll share some trapping and monitoring insights. For our purpose, the definition of Biofix is an identifiable point in Navel Orangeworm's life cycle at which we can begin degree day accumulations. Importantly, setting Biofix can help us predict upcoming Navel Orangeworm flights and plan hull split sprays. And more immediately, setting Biofix can help determine the timing of spring sprays. In the past, the two most common ways to set Biofix for Navel Orangeworm are observing sustained trap capture in pheromone-baited traps, or more commonly, observing eggs in Navel Orangeworm egg traps. This year, we are suggesting setting Biofix using sustained trap capture of Navel Orangeworm in nutmeal-baited traps. We believe this combines the best of the two previous approaches, the practicality of an adult trap and the ability to monitor the reproductive behavior of female Navel Orangeworm. Here's an example of a Semios Navel Orangeworm trap capture report, incorporating both on-farm and regional level insights from the monitoring network. On the top, two graphs summarize data from a farm located approximately here in Madera County. The graph on the left shows mean Navel Orangeworm trap captures per trap on the y-axis and calendar date on the x, whereas the graph on the right shows the percentages of traps on this property that caught a Navel Orangeworm on a given day. You can think of this as a slightly smoothed version of the graph on the left. In some cases, may be easier to read. From these farm-level graphs, we can see that the traps were installed in early April. First trap captures were around April 18th, and sustained trap captures happened as early as the 25th. In early May, there was a cool snap that suppressed trap captures, but the temperatures have since warmed, and the mean trap captures and the percentages of traps catching now have increased since. In these next set of panels contain the same graphs but summarize data from the green region on this map, and thus represent a snapshot of local pest activity for this region. Some of the on-farm trap capture patterns are similar to the region at large. For example, in early May, trap captures were suppressed for about 4 days due to cool weather. But perhaps more interesting for this farm is the fact that many of the traps in this region started catching moths about a week and a half earlier than they did. The final panel on this graph summarizes data across the state and consists of data from each trap in the network. This panel has been included to provide a very high-level context. But considering the size of the Central Valley, we do not recommend making direct comparisons between on-farm data and state-level data. Here is another example from a farm down near Visalia. Please notice that the farm level and the region-wide data have changed, whereas the state-wide data remains the same. Traps on this farm were installed in late March, and the first sustained trap captures were observed around April 9th, which lines up well with the region, although it should be noted that some traps in this region caught moths as early as mid-March. Another interesting note for this farm is that their mean now per trap appears higher than that of their surrounding region. And interesting, almost all of their traps were catching moths during the second week of April, but currently only about 25% of them are. This could reflect differences in pest pressure across the blocks or areas of this farm, maybe something to consider when developing this year's management plans. Our final example today comes from Merced County. This particular farm has had very few trap captures to date. While this is a good place to be, it can make planning ahead more difficult. Fortunately, this grower can choose to use regional data for planning purposes if they believe their on-farm data is too low or inconsistent to reliably set Biofix. For example, sustained trap captures in this region happened as early as April 8th. Semios customers that would like to receive one of these reports for their properties can follow the instructions below. Now I'm going to talk a bit about navel orangeworm biology in relation to temperature. Ambient temperature can affect navel orangeworm in at least two important ways. First, it can affect navel orangeworm's ability to fly and mate. Typically, temperatures less than 59 degrees Fahrenheit are not conducive to navel orangeworm reproductive behavior. Second, temperature will affect navel orangeworm's development rate. This is what we measure with degree days. The important part here is that navel orangeworm develops faster as temperature increases, but its development stops at temperatures less than 15.5 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay, let's look at some data to see how the weather has been influencing navel orangeworm this year. Let's start with flight behavior. Here is data coming from a single Semios in-canopy weather station located in the south of the valley. In green, we have data from 2022, and in blue, we have data from 2023. As we know, the temperatures below 59 degrees Fahrenheit are not conducive to navel orangeworm flight and mating, so let's mark 59 degrees Fahrenheit on the graph. From this, it's pretty easy to see that 2023 has been much cooler than 2022, but let's try to quantify that. Here I've combined those same weather stations so you can see them a bit more clearly. And on the bottom, I have a plot with the average cumulative flight hours from a subset of weather stations across the valley. The only point I want to make here is that there are far fewer opportunities, fewer hours for navel orangeworm to be active in both February and March of 2023 compared to 2022. However, this all changed in April when the flight hours were much closer to what we observed in 2022. Not surprisingly, this happened earlier in the south of the valley compared to the north. And the best way to find this data for your farm is to check the weather tab on the Semios platform. Now let's talk a little bit about development. Here is a map that depicts the differences in navel orangeworm degree day accumulations between 2023 and 2022. Between January 1st and May 1st, in-canopy weather stations have accumulated between 160 and 240 fewer degree days in 2023 compared to 2022. But importantly, starting in April, the degree day accumulations have approached seasonal norms. If and how this affects you really depends on when you set your biofix and where you are in the valley. And the best way to find how this is playing out on your farm is to view the navel orangeworm degree days on the Semios platform. So a quick recap. In terms of behavior, temperatures in February and March were much less conducive to now flight than in recent years. In general, this changed in mid-April when warm temperatures swept into the valley and corresponded with an increase in trap activity. Of course, this varied by region, so be sure to check your Semios weather and site-level trap captures. In terms of development, to be cognizant of the fact that we've accumulated far fewer degree days in 2023 compared to 2022. But ultimately, if and how this affects you depends really on when you set your biofix date and where you are in the valley. For further information on this, check out the Semios platform for details.